The topic is how to strive on heedfully as a layperson. As far as I understand, strive on heedfully is a translation of appamadena sampadeta. So I have to explain what it means first. Right? Appamadena means with non-negligence. Sampadeta means fulfill. Fulfill with non-negligence. Fulfill what? Just now you observed the 5 precepts. So fulfill your vow to observe the 5 precepts with non-negligence. Now in Pali we have the word pamada, which means negligence or forgetfulness. Sometimes it's translated as heedlessness. So the opposite of pamada is appamada, which is non-negligence, non-forgetfulness, or as you have in your title, heedfully. It's interesting that in the Pali we use the word pamada and then we put the negative prefix there and change it into appamada, non-negligence. What is the meaning of negligence? Doing what you are not supposed to do and not doing what you are supposed to do. That's negligence, not doing your duty. Another aspect of it is forgetfulness. When you're forgetful and then you become absent-minded, you forget to do things that you're supposed to do as well. So when we put a negative particle in front and turn it into appamada, then it becomes non-forgetfulness, non-negligence, which can be translated into a positive form with remembrance, with vigilance, or you could say conscientiously. The commentaries also give a synonym for appamada, and that synonym is sati, or mindfulness. As you can see in this context, is non-negligence, or it has the quality of remembering, non-forgetfulness. So every time you observe 5 precepts or 8 precepts, then the monk will say appamadena sampadeta. Don't forget to fulfill. Nowadays, sati has been translated to mean be aware of what one is doing in the present moment. Sometimes it's translated as bear attention. But this is a bit strange because when you look in the suttas, sati is used in compounds and even by itself to mean remembering, recollecting. So when you remember something or recollect something, you're actually thinking of a past object, which is opposite to being aware of the present moment, right? So how do we reconcile this apparent difference in the usage of the word mindfulness and bare awareness in the translation of the word sati? Actually, the word mindfulness cannot be found in the English dictionary. The word mindful means be careful or be reminded to do something as advised or instructed. Nowadays, mindfulness has become a very special Buddhist term. So if you look into modern, updated dictionaries, you'll probably find the word mindfulness there, defined as being aware of what one is doing in the present moment or bear attention. The Pali word sati actually means remembrance, remembering, recollecting, or reminding. Let me give you a couple of examples of how the word sati is used in the suttas to mean recollection or remembrance. For example, Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati. They consist of the words Buddha, Anu, and Sati. Anu means again and again. Sati means remembering, recollecting again and again the Buddha or the virtues of the Buddha. Same for Dhamma and the Sangha. You've also heard of the word Maranasati, Anapanasati. Marana means death, and Sati means thinking about death, recollecting death, remembering death. And then Anapanasati. Ana means in-breath, Apana means out-breath, and Sati means remembering the in-breath and the out-breath. There's also another Pali word called Pubbeni Vasanusati, recollection of past lives. Here the word sati is also used to mean to remember your past lives. Now there's also another occurrence of the word sati in the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Towards the end, we have Chitam Jaram Nisino Vasiyano Yavadasa Vidamedo Edam Sadim Maditeya Brahma Medam Viharamira Mahu. So here the word sati is also used, but it is used in the context of metta, doing loving kindness, not in the context of vipassana. Let me translate that. Whether standing, walking, being seated or lying down, so long as he has overcome drowsiness, he should resolve on this remembrance of standing loving kindness to all beings. For here, they said this way of life is holy. This way of life means the way of remembering to send metta to all beings. Another reference in the Kingsukopama Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 35.245. The Buddha makes use of a simile to describe sati. He says, sati is like a wise, competent and intelligent gatekeeper who keeps out strangers and admits acquaintances. That means this gatekeeper remembers who are the friends and who are strangers. When he sees friends coming, he allows them to enter. When he sees strangers coming in, he remembers not to allow them to enter. So in this case also, the simile of a gatekeeper is used to describe sati, which is remembering to do things you're supposed to do and not to do things you're not supposed to do. Also in several suttas, the Buddha defined a person who has sati as one who remembers and recollects what was done and said long ago. This can be found in Samyutta Nikaya 48.9. Also in another sutta called Sila Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 46.3 defines Sati Sambojjhanga, the enlightenment factor of sati. Let me read to you an extract from the sutta. There are bhikkhus who are accomplished in virtue, concentration, wisdom, liberation, knowledge and vision of liberation. Even the sight of those bhikkhus is helpful. Even listening to them is helpful. Even approaching them is helpful. Even attending on them is helpful. Even recollecting them is helpful. Even going forth after them is helpful, I say. Why? Because when one has heard the Dhamma from such bhikkhus, one dwells withdrawn by body and by mind. Dwelling thus withdrawn, one recollects the Dhamma and thinks it over. Whenever a bhikkhu dwelling thus withdrawn recollects the Dhamma and thinks it over, on that occasion the enlightenment factor of sati is aroused by the bhikkhu. He develops the enlightenment factor of sati, and the enlightenment factor of sati comes to be fulfilled by development. You'll notice in this quotation that the Buddha defines the enlightenment factor of sati as the act of recollecting or remembering the Dhamma that he heard from the bhikkhus and thinking about it. So it's got nothing to do with... So far we have seen that so many references talk of sati to mean remembering, recollecting, reminding yourself. Then how is it that nowadays when we use the word mindfulness, people understand it to mean being aware of what one is doing in the present moment or bear attention? How did this meaning of sati come to be interpreted in this way? I think this could be because of the compound word sati sampajana, which is often translated as mindfulness and full awareness or mindfulness and full comprehension. So what's the difference between sati and sampajana? This is defined in many suttas. To give you two examples, Samyutta Nikaya 47.2 and 47.35. There the Buddha defines sati, or one who has sati, as one who continuously observes body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, phenomena as phenomena. When a person observes the body as the body, you're not talking about looking in the mirror and looking at your body as your body. But we are talking about being aware of the physical sensations that you can feel in your body. Hardness, softness, heat, cold, movement, vibrations, stiffness, and so forth. When talking about feelings, we are talking about mental feelings or feelings that arise because of the body. For example, after you sit for some time, you may have pain. That pain causes an unpleasant feeling to arise at that place. Previous to the pain arising, you might just be aware of the sensations there as hardness or some warmth. After some time, it becomes painful. It's no longer just warm, no longer just hard, but now it's hard pain and hot pain. When pain arises, it can arise in two places. One is in the body and another is in the mind. When it arises in the body, like I said just now, it becomes hot pain or hard pain or poking pain. But how does it arise in the mind? When your mind dislikes the pain, then there is the mental feeling of dislike. But if you meditate until your samadhi, your concentration is good, then you can reach a level whereby your mind can just step back and look at the pain, heat as heat, pain as pain, without reacting to it. That means your mind doesn't feel unpleasant feelings, but your body feels unpleasant. So at that time, to observe the body as a body means you can see that the body just comprises physical sensations. And these physical sensations are not you. They do not belong to you. And they are not part of a permanent self. So when the Buddha says, observe the body as a body, you observe the body as just external phenomena that are not yours, not belonging to you. It's the same for the others, feelings, mind, and phenomena. Now, mind here means the state of mind. When you see something, you hear something, how does your mind react? How does it respond? Is there attachment? Is there greed? Is there dislike? Is there liking? Knowing your state of mind as just another phenomena, not you, not yours, not yourself. When you talk about phenomena, you translate it as fa, right? This fa does not necessarily mean the teachings of the Buddha. It could also mean the teachings of the Buddha, but actually it means what the Buddha taught us about phenomena. Phenomena means things that are happening around us, like seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling with the body. These are phenomena. All these processes also are seen as just phenomena which do not belong to you, not yours. A lot of times we forget. We forget to observe these things as not self and phenomena. Most of the time we associate with our thoughts, thinking that our thoughts are I, our emotions are I, thinking our body is I, and then we look in the mirror and we dress up and put a cosmetic, try to make up and look very nice, thinking that that's I. Because there's no mindfulness. If there's really mindfulness, you'll be able to see that these are just external phenomena which do not belong to you. So now let's look at the word sambhajana. We talk about mindfulness, talk about sati, meaning remind yourself or to remember. Instructions of the Buddha. Remember to observe things in a certain way. Now, sambhajana means full awareness. And this is how it is stated in the sutta. One acts with full awareness when going forward and returning, looking ahead and looking aside, bending and stretching the limbs, wearing robes, carrying outer robe and bowl, eating, drinking, chewing, tasting, defecating and urinating, walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, speaking, keeping silent. When all these activities are being done, one has to exercise full awareness. Know exactly what you are doing at the present moment. Full awareness of all these activities while they are being carried out is described actually in the Satipatthana Sutta under Kayanupasana, repeated observation of the body. So this looks like the Buddha is trying to explain that full awareness in this case means being fully aware of the physical sensations that one can feel while these activities are being carried out. However, in another sutta in Samyutta Nikaya 47.35, the Buddha also talks about exercising full awareness with regards to mental states, not just the body. Early on we talked about all these activities which pertain to the body. But now, in this sutta, the Buddha talks about being fully aware of feelings when they arise, as they persist, and when they pass away. Being fully aware when thoughts arise, persist, and pass away. When perceptions arise, persist, and pass away. I will explain in further detail what are thoughts and perceptions. Early on I talked about feelings, right? Feelings are mental feelings, feelings that arise in your mind, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, and neutral feelings. Perception means the ability to recognize an object. If I hold up something here, first you see this object and then you recognize it because of its shape and form, and then after that you think about this object. You think, oh, where did he get this? What color is it? I wonder what brand it is, how much it is, and these sort of things. These are thoughts about it. The first occurrence when you see it is perception, the mind that recognizes the object. So now we have gone through what is sati and what is sambhajana as defined by the Buddha. This combination of sati and sambhajana, remembrance and full awareness, is now contained in the popular idea of what mindfulness is. But in meditation practice, I want to suggest that there is some degree of overlap. Full awareness is actually shared by sati and sambhajana, mindfulness and insight. Remembrance and full awareness actually belonging to mindfulness, clear comprehension and insight being synonymous. You see that actually sambhajana includes both full awareness and comprehension, whereas sati, the word sati by itself has a moral sense. In various suttas, the Buddha talks about samma sati and miccha sati, right mindfulness and wrong mindfulness. So, people say once a person becomes an arahant, he's got mindfulness all the time. They sort of assume that the mindfulness an arahant has is right mindfulness. Of course, an arahant will not have wrong mindfulness. But looking at the core meaning of the word sati, it is very reasonable why the Buddha talks about right sati and wrong sati. Because sati actually just means remembrance, remembering a past object. So it depends on how you utilize that sati. If you remember things in a certain way, then it is right mindfulness. If you remember other things, then it is not right mindfulness, it is wrong mindfulness. Be specific. In many suttas, Sammasati is defined as the 4 satipatthanas, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. What are these 4 foundations of mindfulness? To repeatedly observe the body as the body, observe feelings as feelings, mind as mind, Dhamma as Dhamma. Kaye kayanupasi viharati. You see, kaye kayanupasana. Kaya anupasana. Kaya is the body, anu is repeatedly, pasana is to observe. To repeatedly observe the body as the body, or observe the body in the body. Observe feelings as feelings, mind as mind, Dhamma as Dhamma. Because if you use the word contemplate, you might be misled in your thinking that it is some intellectual thinking. When you contemplate, you think about something. But this is not actually thinking, it is observing. Pasana. It's just like vipassana. The verb is pasati, and the noun becomes pasana. And if you put a prefix anu, it becomes repeated. If you put the prefix vi, it becomes clear or in various modes. So coming back to the Satipatthana, then the Buddha went on to describe in detail how to do Kayanupassana. Then he says here, a monk goes to the forest or to the foot of a tree, to a secluded place, sits cross-legged with his back straight, and then establishing sati. With sati, he breathes in. With sati, he breathes out. When he breathes in, he knows he breathes in. When he breathes out, he knows he breathes out. From then onwards, the word sati is no more used. The word used instead is pajanati. He knows. But sati is used at the beginning. He says sato va pasasati. Sato va pasasati. Having sati, he breathes in. Having sati, he breathes out. In practice, what does that mean? It means that when you are practicing anapanasati, you have to remind yourself to be aware of the breath as you breathe in and breathe out. Also, in the actual practice of meditation, the first thing you need to do is approach a teacher, listen to the teacher's instructions, and remember the instructions so that you can put them into practice, right? So this remembering of a teacher's instruction is one aspect of sati sambojjhanga, which we quoted just now. Remembering what your teacher taught you. So your teacher says, okay, when you sit down, sit with your back straight, relax your body, and be aware of your breath as it moves in and moves out. So these are the instructions of the teacher. When you sit down and do your meditation, you have to remember, oh, I must sit with my back straight. I must be relaxed. I must watch the breath in and out. Right? So this is one part of sati, remembering the instructions of a teacher. The other aspect of sati is after you remember your teacher's instructions, then you don't think about it anymore. You watch your breath as it goes in and goes out. As you watch your breath, then sometimes you forget. You start to think of some thoughts of the past or the future, or you get distracted by noises or things like that, and you start to think. Then you suddenly remember, hey, I'm supposed to be watching the breath. How come I'm thinking of this and that? Okay, then you bring back your now we're getting closer and closer to the present moment. Earlier on, you're talking about the past instructions that your teacher gave you. Now, while you're sitting and you are meditating, your mind runs off, and then you remember to come back to your breath. Now, let's look at the five senses. Each of our five senses has got its respective consciousness. Eye consciousness can only see objects through the eye. Ear consciousness can only hear sounds or vibrations through the ear. Nose consciousness can only smell things at the nose. Tongue consciousness can only taste in the tongue. And your body consciousness can only feel sensations in your body. The eye consciousness cannot hear a sound. Nose consciousness cannot see any object. Even more obvious is mind consciousness. Although the five sense consciousness can only take present objects, because you can only see with your eye consciousness something of the present moment. Can you see something which you saw earlier on today with your eye? Cannot. Can you hear a sound that you heard earlier on before with your ears? Even though nowadays we have tape recorders and CD players, they are actually present objects because you are playing the vibrations again. So, when you are using sati or mindfulness to watch your breath, the body consciousness is feeling the in-breath and the out-breath. But it is your mind consciousness that is watching it. Your ear consciousness is hearing the sound, but it is your mind consciousness that is observing the hearing process. Now this may not become so clear in the five senses, but it becomes very clear at the mind door. When a thought arises and then you are aware of the thought, aren't you aware of a past object? Right? If anger arises in you and you are aware of that anger, isn't that awareness taking a past object? If you're angry, you are not aware. If you're aware of the anger, it means you're already out of the anger, you're looking at it. Right? So that is sati. You're actually looking at the past object, but it's an immediate past. Actually, past, present, and future are all relative. How present is present? This is your present lifetime. But when you were born, it's a past. Today, this present day. It starts from early morning until now. What is in the morning is already past. So, sati, although it can remember things of the distant past, it also recollects things of the immediate past. When you look at it in terms of relativity, what is of immediate past can also be considered part of the bigger present. So that's why people say, be mindful, be in the present moment. Actually, you're not in the present moment. You're looking back at the immediate past. It is very obvious in the mind door. When thoughts arise in you, you watch thoughts, they are no longer there. If anger arises, jealousy, lust, when you watch them, they're no longer there. So it's actually watching a past object. In the other sense doors, it's actually the same. For example, if you're deep in meditation, very concentrated, suddenly you hear a sound that sort of distracts your attention from your breath.
If you meditated before, you will know that sometimes you don't immediately recognize the sound. Sometimes you have to think, what sound is that? Although under normal consciousness, you would immediately recognize the sound as a dog barking or a bird sound. But when you are deep in meditation and you are distracted from your meditation object, you don't immediately recognize the sound. You know that something has distracted your mind. Ear consciousness has registered an object. Then your mind consciousness will go and note it or be aware of it. And then it will take some time sometimes to figure out what is that sound, to be able to put a label to it. Oh, that's a motorbike. Or you go deeper and so that is some particular person's motorbike. So although sati has been used in many compound words and even by itself in the suttas to mean remembrance, to use the word mindfulness to describe sati when observing the immediate past objects, things that you can perceive through your five senses and your mind door, can also be correct. So when we use the word mindfulness to mean be aware of what's happening in the present moment, we are actually looking at the past, the immediate past. So that's why sati can mean remembering long past objects or being aware of objects of the immediate past. That's why we can include remembrance and full awareness under sati. But sati does not have insight, because insight comes under panya, and that will be under clear comprehension. Again, I want to summarize. In the practice of meditation, when you remember your teacher's instruction, that is also sati. As you watch the rising and falling, for example, your mind runs away, think of something, and then after that you remember, hey, I'm supposed to watch the rising and falling. Find samasati as part of the noble path to mean just the four establishments of sati. And they are body, feelings, mind, and dhamma. So what he's trying to say is that you must always remember to observe the body as body, feelings as feelings, mind states as mind states, dhamma as dhamma, not otherwise. What is meant by otherwise? Instead of watching the body sensations as body sensations, you think that the body sensations belong to you. It is my pain. Or the body sensation is you. Oh, the pain is me. Or it is myself. Every day before you go out to work, when you get out from bed, you look at the mirror, comb your hair properly, apply cosmetics and things like that. You're looking at yourself and you are not having right mindfulness because you think that that body is you. And you have thoughts. You have thoughts and emotions and you associate yourself with the thoughts. That's mine. The thoughts are mine. The thoughts are I. The emotions are I. Give you a very classic example. One of our devotees, meditator, she used to walk around Lake Gardens for a morning walk or evening walk. Then one day she noticed that as she was walking along, she happened to glance up and saw another woman coming in the opposite direction. How come her cheekbones are so high? How come the nose is so short? How come the hair is not done properly? She has all these thoughts going on in her mind. And then after that, she realized that she's been judgmental. And how can I be so judgmental? It's none of my business to go and comment on other people's face. Then she was very sorry for herself. How can I have such bad thoughts? Okay, look at this particular example. She's identifying what she sees with a person. Secondly, after she realized that she's having all these uncalled for comments in her mind, then she identifies the thoughts with herself. These are my thoughts. How can I, such a good person, have such bad thoughts? So you're associating yourself with the thoughts and then you are judgmental not only on that person, you are judgmental on yourself as well. So when the Buddha says the four establishments of mindfulness, four satipatthana, he means remember to observe the body as the body. The body is not yours. All those physical sensations that you feel don't belong to you. They are just there because they are conditioned phenomena. Even more so for your thoughts, your feelings, any anger that you have within you, any jealousy or any lust that arises within you, they do not belong to you. They are not you. You don't have to condemn yourself for having such bad thoughts. They are there because the conditions are still there for them to arise. Now, that's talking about negative emotions and negative thoughts. When positive thoughts arise in you, for example, you can do something very well, and then your boss praises you, and then you feel very proud. Oh, see, I can do so well. I have got such a good memory. I'm so intelligent, I can answer the questions correctly. You are also identifying with your thoughts. Oh, I have so much faith. I'm such a generous person. If you want to practice right mindfulness, it means that you must dissociate or disidentify. Now let's talk about other aspects of mindfulness, because which doesn't mean that there's no usefulness for sati that does not belong to samasati. You still need a lot of sati or remembrance or mindfulness in your daily life. You must remember to get up early in the morning in order to go to your office. You must remember all your tasks that you have to do. You must remember your responsibilities as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a teacher, as a student. You must remember to catch the bus at the right time and leave your house at the right time. All this you have to remember, and all this is sati. It is still sati. You have to practice well with non-negligence so that people don't sue you for negligence. Whether you're a lawyer or whether you're a doctor or whatever you are doing, you must do it with mindfulness. But all this mindfulness is not right mindfulness, not samasati. It is micchasati. But it doesn't mean that it's evil. It is right and wrong only in a relative sense. Right sati, samasati, will lead you to nibbana. Remembering to get up early in the morning to catch the bus, that will not bring you to nibbana. It will bring you to the office. Right? But that is wrong sati, but it's useful. Right? Remembering your obligations in the role that you have to play as a parent or as a child or as a teacher or as a student, as an employer or as an employee, is also very important. Remembering how to practice patience and forgiveness, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, now these are also very important. But these may not be right mindfulness. Wrong mindfulness, but which are good, which are helpful to you. So you must remember right and wrong are relative. And when the Buddha uses the word samasati, he is using it in the particular context of the Noble Eightfold Path leading to liberation, to Nibbana. It's the same with samadhi. Samadhi means Aggacitta, one-pointedness. Your mind is not distracted by any other things. You can have samadhi when you are reading a very interesting novel. You read the novel until you're oblivious to what's happening around you. Some people, when they watch TV, they get so engrossed in TV that even when somebody calls them, they don't hear, One of our devotees in Taiping tends to get very engrossed in things that he does. Sometimes when he's watching TV and the wife calls him, he cannot hear, The wife got to come in front of him, switch off the TV and say, "Hey, I'm talking to you." Then only he realizes. So that is also samadhi. That is one-pointedness of mind. There's non-distraction of mind, which is the definition of samadhi. But that is not right samadhi. That is not samma samadhi, because that sort of samadhi will not lead him to nibbana. You can get very concentrated and be successful in what you are doing in the worldly sense, but that does not help you to become an Arya or to attain liberation. So, how to strive on heedfully as a layperson? How to fulfill what you're supposed to do with non-negligence? It means that you must have mindfulness. Even though it is not right mindfulness according to the Noble Eightfold Path, you still need to have mindfulness to survive as a human being. What sort of things must you not forget to fulfill? Coming back to the topic, how to strive on heedfully as a layperson. You see the word strive on heedfully? There's an extra verb there, strive. In the actual Pali, there's no word there which means strive. Apamadena sampadeta means remember to fulfill, in brackets, your vow, your observance. I guess the word fulfill implies to strive. Sometimes this is translated as strive on diligently. But the word diligently doesn't really fit into this, because apamada does not suggest diligence, the quality of being hardworking. The main quality is non-forgetfulness, don't forget, which is also equivalent to sati, because sati means to remember, to recall, to remember, to remind yourself. Okay, so for lay people, your training is a bit different from that of monks.
For monks, the training is Sila, Samadhi, Panya. For lay people, your training is Dana, Sila, Bhavana, right? So don't forget to fulfill your training of Dana, Sila and Bhavana. Dana means giving. Giving means giving to whom? When you say Dana, what do you think of? People think that Dana means offering to monks. Not necessarily. Dana means giving. You can give to anyone, to monks, to your children, workers, and so forth. But then even in giving, we must understand that we can only do within our capability. We must not be so enthusiastic about it that you give so much that you don't have enough for yourself. It's interesting to note that while the Christians and the Muslims have tithing, they tithe 10% of their income, we Buddhists don't tithe. Last time I was participating in a course under Master Chua Kok Sui, and he was telling us about the importance of giving. Giving has got a lot of energy in it, and that giving can even help you to heal yourself. And he was stressing the importance of giving, and he says that the Christians and the Muslims, they have tithing, they tithe 10%, but you Buddhists don't tithe. And you see, because they tithe, the Christians and the Muslims are so rich. Almost every Muslim country has oil. Why is it only Muslim countries got oil and Buddhist countries have hardly any oil? Talking about giving, there are a couple of suttas. For example, in Patakama Sutta, in Anguttara Nikaya, and in Arya Sutta, also in Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha gave us some pointers about how to make use of wealth in a proper way for lay people. So as Dana is one of your trainings, you want to strive on heedfully. Remember to fulfill the training of Dana, you must also know something about Dana. To what extent should you or can you do Dana? 7 or 8 years ago, when I was staying in Penang, there's one guy in Penang, he's got a lot of faith in Sangha. And whenever any Sangha members need anything, then he will go all out to help them, to get things for them, to chauffeur them around. But he was not really earning very much, and it seems that he overspent his earnings and he was in financial difficulty. So people tried to talk some sense into him. I don't know whether they succeeded or not. But it's interesting to note that in the Anguttara Nikaya, book of Fives, there are a couple of suttas. And in this particular sutta, 126, book of Fours, sutta number 61, when the householder Anathapindika approached the Buddha one day, the Buddha told him, when a noble disciple or disciple of the noble ones, after they have earned their wealth in a righteous way, in a lawful way, then they should make use of the wealth in certain ways. The first thing that one should do is to follow the rule, charity begins at home. First of all, you must try to make yourself happy, make yourself satisfied and contented. And then after that, do the same thing to your parents, to your spouse, to your children, to people in your household, your workers and your servants. That's the first thing. The second thing you do is then to try to make your friends and colleagues happy. If you're the boss, for example, sometimes you might want to take your subordinates out for lunch, give them gifts to make them happy, and your other friends as well. After that, the third thing is to save for a rainy day. I'm sure that all of you are aware of this, and you probably would have bought insurance and so forth, made some investments in case something's happened in the future. You never know. I guess also included in your savings would be for your children. Nowadays it's very expensive to have children, right? It takes about ringgit 1 million to send your children right through university education. And with inflation rates, it's going higher. So that already takes up a large piece of the cake. Then medical expenses are also very, very expensive nowadays. With all the specialist centers and some unscrupulous specialist centers, in case of any health problems, then you have to make sure that you have enough to see through it. So the next thing is number 4. After you have done all this, you have saved the money for yourself, to make yourself happy, your family happy, save enough money for your children's future education, save to make your friends happy, save for a rainy day. The next thing you do is to make the 5 sorts of offerings. First, to your relatives. As a relative, you have some sort of obligation and responsibility to help them. But there's also a certain limit to what one can do to help one's relatives. Whatever it is also part of the responsibility. So that's one type of offering that one should do. The second is to make offerings to guests who come to see you. You have to be hospitable, entertain them with food or with drinks and with your time and effort as well. Thirdly, you also have to give to departed relatives. Make offerings to departed relatives like we Chinese do during Qingbing. Then after that is to make offerings to the king. How do you make offerings to the king? To the Agong. Pay your taxes, right? Don't evade tax, pay your taxes, make your offerings. And finally, you also make offerings to devas, to your guardian devas or the guardian devas of your house and so forth, or the local Datuk Gong. Making of offerings to devas, although it is frowned upon by some Puritan Buddhists, in the suttas, the Buddha actually encouraged a lay Buddhist follower to continue to do this. The reason why we make offerings to devas is so that they will feel honored and they will in turn take care of us and help us when we are in trouble. Okay, anyway, these are the 5 offerings. One is to your living relatives, to your guests, to your departed relatives, then to the king, and finally to devas. One of our workers offended one of the devas in our monastery. He put his boots in front of the place where they normally make their offerings. There was one rock outcrop where our other Indian workers used to pray to the devas inhabiting that area. And soon after that, he felt like he was going to faint, having diarrhea, very weak. It was an emergency. Someone sent him down to the specialist center. The clinics were not open, and then they sent him to take all the tests. But he was in very bad shape. All the tests showed that all his organs were failing. He had kidney failure, his liver was failing, his heart was in poor condition. Although he normally had high blood pressure, that day he had low blood pressure. And he could hardly breathe. They had to give him oxygen and put him on saline. He cannot eat also. So he was in very bad shape. He went to the specialist center. He stayed there just for a few hours and they did all the tests. And after that, they said, oh, this is very serious. We cannot put him here because we cannot handle him. Better send him to the emergency ward in the GH. It's very strange because although the specialist center gave all these reports, when he came back to KL, after about a week staying in the GH, and he went to UKM for another checkup, everything was normal. That was because we did a lot of chanting and metta for him there. We knew that he had offended the spirit, so all of us did a lot of metta for the spirit and asked the spirit to forgive him, as well as asked him and his wife to ask for forgiveness and to send metta to the spirit. So it's very obvious that when such things happen, even the medical people cannot tell you what's wrong. In the specialist center, the specialist doctors also don't know what's wrong with him. We went to the GH doctors were also all baffled. They don't know what's wrong with him. They only suspect it's a viral infection. What else can they say? So finally, through our intervention, he finally got well, came back to UKM, everything was normal. No more low blood pressure, now it's back to high blood pressure. Okay, so after having done all these things, having done the 5 offerings, then if you still got money left, then you make offerings to monks. See, the Buddha is a very practical man, you know. He says take care of yourself first and then do all these worldly responsibilities. And then if you still have some money left, then only how to be heedful. You have to try to observe the 5 precepts. Of the 5 precepts, which is the most difficult to observe? Number 4. Number 4. A businessman will tell you, if I observe number 4, no need to work already. Right? But the Buddha always stressed the importance of the 5 precepts. At one time, Mahanama, one of his cousins, approached him and asked him, Bhante, what does it constitute to be a lay follower? Then the Buddha says, to be a lay follower, you need to take refuge in the Triple Gem, in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. You continue to ask, then what does it take to become a virtuous lay follower? So a virtuous lay follower is one who follows the 5 precepts. If you don't observe the 5 precepts, you can be a Buddhist, but not a virtuous Buddhist. just a Buddhist by name. You want to be a real virtuous lay follower of the Buddha, you have to observe the 5 precepts. But in addition to the 5 precepts, you also have the 8 precepts. In Malaysia, I don't think that's very popular, but in traditional Buddhist countries like Sri Lanka, Thailand and Burma, it's very common for lay people to come to the temple every week to observe the 8 precepts. So this is also part of a lay person's sila. But even higher than that is what is known as the 10 types of wholesome actions. 3 are connected with the body, 4 are connected with speech, and 3 are connected with the mind. The 3 connected with the body are no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct. The 4 connected with speech are no lying, no harsh speech, no divisive speech. Divisive speech means you divide people who are already in harmony. No idle chatter. Idle chatter means saying things without any spiritual or material profit. Then the 3 connected with the mind: ill will, covetousness, and wrong view. Ill will means having any ill feelings towards somebody, wishing to harm them. Within the mind, you have not really done anything. You're just thinking about how you can spite this fellow, how you can make him no face, how you can do things to hurt that person so that he'll be unhappy. Covetousness means to desire something or somebody that belongs to someone else. It's not merely to desire something that you want very badly. It's something that belongs to somebody else. Somebody's wife, somebody's husband, somebody's boyfriend, somebody's girlfriend you want to possess. Or somebody else's inanimate object that you like very much and you cannot buy elsewhere, so you scheme to get his or her property. That is covetousness. This also happens in the mind, it has not been expressed physically or verbally. It only happens in the mind, but still it is an unwholesome mental action that can actually cause rebirth in the lower realms. It's quite powerful. Although you didn't do anything physical or verbal, it just happens in your mind. But it can land you in lower realms. And then wrong view. Wrong view means not believing in karma, the law of karma. So if you have that sort of wrong view, that can also land you in apaya. So these are the 10 causes of wholesome action, which a layperson also should try to observe, try to fulfill. So a layperson's training consists of dana, sila and bhavana. Bhavana means training of the mind. And how do you train the mind? It's interesting that although the Buddha gave a lot of talks on meditation, they were mostly meant for monks. And he hardly gave any talks on meditation to lay people, particularly connected with the Satipatthana meditation, which is now so popular. There are a couple of suttas where the Buddha would talk about Satipatthana Sutta, or would talk about developing contemplation on impermanence, on suffering and not self, to lay people who are sick or who are dying, but not to healthy lay people. It's very strange. In fact, I would think that during the Buddha's time, lay people who got enlightened are very lucky, because they got enlightened not through a meditation retreat like what most of us are doing now. They got enlightened by listening to a Dhamma talk. And those people who cannot get enlightened have to become monks in order to practice hard to get enlightened. There's this story of Mahanama, the cousin of the Buddha. He came to ask the Buddha, for a lay person who has already seen the Dhamma, who has already attained the Dhamma, how should he continue to live as a lay person? What do you think the Buddha asked him to do? Go for meditation retreats? Did he ask him to do that? Let me read it out to you. From Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 6, Sutta number 10. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Kapilavatthu in the Banyan Tree Monastery. Then Mahanama, the Sakyan, approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said, Venerable Sir, in what way does a noble disciple often dwell when he has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching? It seems that this Mahanama has already attained second stage of enlightenment. So he came to ask the Buddha, since he's already seen the Dhamma, how should he continue to practice? When Mahanama, a noble disciple, has arrived at the fruit and understood the teaching, he often dwells in such a way as this.
Here, a noble disciple recollects the Tathagata thus. The Blessed One is an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, and so forth. So he's actually reflecting on the virtues of the Buddha. When the noble disciple recollects the Tathagata thus, on that occasion his mind is not obsessed by lust, hatred or delusion. His mind is straight with the Tathagata as its object. A noble disciple whose mind is straight gains the inspiration of the meaning, the inspiration of the Dhamma, gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. When he is gladdened, rapture arises. For one uplifted by rapture, the body becomes calm. One calm in body feels happy. For one who is happy, the mind becomes concentrated. This is called a noble disciple who dwells evenly amid an uneven population, who dwells without affliction amid an afflicted population, who has entered upon the stream of the Dhamma and develops recollection of the Buddha. Then he goes on to talk about recollection of the Dhamma, recollection of the Sangha, and then recollection of his own morality, of his own sila. Okay, let me read to you this one. Further, Mahanama, a noble disciple recollects his own moral discipline thus. I possess the moral virtues dear to the noble ones, unbroken, untorn, unblemished, unmottled, freeing, praised by the wise, ungrasped, leading to concentration. And then he repeated what he said just now and concludes with, this is called a noble disciple who dwells evenly amid an even population, who dwells without affliction amid an afflicted population, who has entered upon the stream of the Dhamma and develops recollection of moral discipline. The fifth one is, he will recollect his own generosity. Further, Mahanama, a noble disciple recollects his own generosity thus. It is a gain for me, it is well gained by me, that in a population obsessed by the stain of stinginess, I dwell at home with a mind devoid of the stain of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, one devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. When a noble disciple recollects his own generosity thus, on that occasion his mind is not obsessed by lust, hatred or delusion. His mind is straight with generosity as its object. In all of these cases, the Buddha will continue by saying, a noble disciple whose mind is straight gains the inspiration of the meaning, the inspiration of the Dhamma, gains gladness connected with the Dhamma, and from there, rapture arises. For one uplifted by rapture, the body becomes calm. One calm in body feels happiness, and for one who is happy, the mind becomes concentrated. So he's saying that by doing all these things, you will eventually attain some sort of concentration. And then finally, the sixth thing is the recollection of the Devas. You see, even a lay disciple of the Buddha recollects the virtues of Devas as well. Further, Mahanama, a noble disciple develops the recollection of the Devas thus. There are Devas in the various heavenly realms. There is found in me such faith, moral discipline, learning, generosity and wisdom as those Devas possessed, because of which, when they passed away from this world, they were reborn there. So what he's trying to say is that those Devas up there also have similar virtues as I have. Formerly, when they were human beings, they have all these virtues, and now they are Devas. So what he's trying to say is that he also will become a Deva because he has all these virtues. When a noble disciple recollects his own faith, moral discipline, learning, generosity and wisdom, as well as those of the Devas, on that occasion his mind is not obsessed by lust, hatred or delusion. His mind is straight with the Devas as its object. Because of that, he gets inspiration of the meaning, inspiration of the Dhamma, he gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. From there rapture arises, and from rapture his body becomes calm, he feels happy, and then when the mind becomes happy, he feels concentrated. So this is called a noble disciple who dwells evenly amid an uneven population, who dwells without affliction amid an afflicted population. That could be because during the Buddha's time, circumstances were a bit different. In those days, lay people were very much involved in earning a living through a very tough means. They were engaged either in agricultural or in mercantile occupations, and they were very, very occupied, so they didn't have enough time to practice like a monk or a renunciant could. Nowadays it's different. I think it's turned the other way around. Monks are more busy than lay people. When I'm in Taiping, I will go to collect my alms. But when I'm in the Klang Valley, I don't go for Pindabat. A lot of devotees will bring their food for lunch dana. 90% of them, or 95% of them are all women. And they're almost the same faces every day. So women now are very free, while their husbands are out working. You see here how many women there are? While their husbands are busy working, the women will just delegate their jobs to their Indonesian maid or their Burmese maid or their Filipino maid, and then they have all the time in the world. When the children are in school and the husband is away, they can actually practice to gain the jhanas, right? Whereas monks nowadays, wow, they have a lot of duties to do, Not only have they got to learn their own stuff, their own monastic rules, they have to study scriptures, to teach their fellow monks, as well as to give Dharma talks and to teach lay people how to meditate, right? And then not only that, when you become a monk, automatically you become a counselor, whether you like it or not. People will come with all sorts of personal problems, marital problems, business problems. They come and then they try to confide in the monk and ask the monk to jitiam them, to go and help them. So the monk is very busy. He got so many things to do. Now that I'm in KL, every night also got Dharma talk. Then people like to invite me for dana in their houses, and after that got to give a little talk. After that got discussion. Come back home also got to prepare for another talk at night. Things are a bit different now. So lay people, I suppose, have more time and more opportunity to meditate. And so one of your trainings now, besides just mental development connected with the 6 recollections that I talked about just now, you all also should try to practice Satipatthana meditation. The principles of Satipatthana meditation are actually very simple, although the sutta is very long. Okay, let's look at it as 4 establishments of mindfulness. But before that, let's look at what the Buddha says in his introduction. The Buddha says, this is a one-way, like a one-way street. This is the one way for the purification of beings, number 1. Second is for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. Number 3 is for the extinguishment of dukkha domanassa, physical suffering and mental distress. And then it is for the attainment of the way. And finally is for the realization of Nibbana. Although the realization of Nibbana is its final or ultimate goal, in between you have also many fringe benefits. For example, you can overcome sorrow and lamentation. You can overcome physical suffering as well as mental distress. And because of these fringe benefits that you can get by practicing Satipatthana meditation, it has now become very popular in the West. And you have people of other religions practicing Satipatthana meditation, mindfulness meditation, so they call it. For example, if you have heard of Goenka, Goenka is an Indian who was born and grew up in Burma. But after that, he left Burma and went back to India and started to teach meditation based on a tradition that he learned when he was in Burma. And now his school of meditation has become internationally famous. And even his meditation instructors belong to all religions. He's got Muslim meditation instructors, Hindu meditation instructors, Sikh meditation instructors, Christian meditation instructors, free thinker meditation instructors. They come from all walks of life and all sorts of creeds and religions. Why? Because the practice of Satipatthana actually transcends all religious beliefs. It's a very simple practice of introspective awareness. And in the West now, it has really been incorporated into a lot of psychotherapies. Nowadays, we have mindfulness-based psychotherapies to treat patients who suffer from psychological problems, as well as patients who suffer physically because of illness. Cancer patients, for example. There's one book written by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. It's called Full Catastrophe Living. That was his first book about his successful efforts in helping cancer patients to cope with the pain that they had to go through mindfulness. And now, after many years, they have developed these mindfulness-based psychotherapies to even apply it to schizophrenics, people who have so-called split personality, who have a lot of hallucinations. They hear voices, they have very strange thoughts, suspicions of people wanting to kill them, or people wanting to do this and that. But actually, these patients, they have these hallucinations. They cannot really control themselves. And that's why they have to take all these drugs to suppress the production of certain hormones or enzymes in their body that stimulate all these responses in the brain that creates these hallucinations. Oh, that's what the scientists say. So those people who have been using this mindfulness-based psychotherapy have even applied that to schizophrenics, people who have all these hallucinations and unfounded fears. And they found that it worked quite well. You know why? Because when you have this fair awareness, this objective awareness of your thoughts and emotions, and you do not associate with them, then you are not under their power. A lot of us are enslaved by our thoughts and emotions. We think that our thoughts belong to us, or we are our thoughts, or our thoughts are ourselves. Unless you become a sotapan, you will still have that sort of view if you don't practice meditation. You still associate with yourself. When thoughts of anger arise, or lustful thoughts arise, you may not like those thoughts and you are judgmental about those thoughts, and so you judge yourself, criticize yourself, or are angry at yourself. And that will create even more negative reactions within yourself. So the whole process of Satipatthana meditation is to step back and to watch things without getting involved in them. Thoughts are thoughts, they don't belong to you. Emotions are emotions, they don't belong to you. Watch them, let them go, and then try to watch other things, more neutral objects. So they apply this to schizophrenics who have all these hallucinations. Actually, all of us also have our own hallucinations. We are having our perceptions of what things are like outside. We think a lot and our thoughts need not necessarily be true. Watch, for example, fear. Supposing you are afraid of the dark. Somebody will lock you in the room and switch off the light. What's going to happen to you? Well, at first, there's nothing there. You are just sitting in a dark room. Then your mind will start to think, hey, what is that in the corner? I hear something moving or see a light somewhere. And then you start to think, could that be a ghost? Could that be what? It's your mind, your thoughts that are making you fearful. Actually, there's nothing. A sound is just a sound. Right? So those people who are suffering from schizophrenia have a similar problem. They have a thought that arises and then they associate with the thought. And they think that the thing is real, but actually it's only a thought. So if you're able to step back and just watch thoughts, that's what you got to do. Strive on heedfully as a lay person. Remember to fulfill your training. Dana, Sila, Bhavana. Bhavana is not just confined to the 6 recollections, but also, if you can find a proper teacher, try to practice Satipatthana meditation. And it's not necessarily mean that you must sit down with your legs crossed and the eyes closed and the back straight in order to practice Satipatthana meditation. You can actually practice it anytime, whenever you remember. Watch your mind, how it's reacting to what's happening around you, and don't get caught up by your thoughts and emotions. Okay? Question is, just now I said that when one is watching anger, it's really a past object because one cannot be watching anger in the present moment. But Jeffrey says that from his own experience, he feels that when he's watching anger, anger doesn't disappear immediately and it takes some time before it subsides. So he feels that it is in the present moment. Now, when negative thoughts arise in your mind, they stimulate the hypothalamus and other glands in the body to produce what we call neuropeptides, harmful amino acids produced by the glands as a result of mental activity. And these neuropeptides will attack the healthy cells in your body. So this can be experienced when you are having negative emotions like anger, depression, sadness. One of the first things you feel when you get angry is the congestion in your heart area. And after that, your blood goes up to your face and you get flushed all over and you get heated up here. And then sometimes you can even feel a sour feeling in your stomach. Some people get gastric. These things are being produced by the mind. The mind stimulates the glands in the body to produce all these neuropeptides which harm the healthy cells. That's why you feel all these uncomfortable sensations in your body. Now, once an angry thought arises in the mind and it stimulates these glands in the body to produce these neuropeptides, this production will keep on going for some time. Even though the angry thought has stopped, the peptides are being produced. It's just like if you're driving on the highway at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, and then suddenly you see something running across the road and you slam on the brakes. Can you brake immediately? It will take some time for you to arrest the momentum of the car before you can stop. So it's the same. Even though there may not be any more angry thoughts in your mind, there's still these sensations in your body, very uncomfortable sensations in the body that keeps on going. It will take some time for them to subside when your angry thoughts have been replaced by more wholesome or neutral thoughts. Plus, thoughts occur at a very incredible speed. When we are mindful of angry thoughts, actually anger is not there. But if your mindfulness is not strong enough, then anger comes in again. So you're actually going back and forth between watching anger and mindfulness. When you are mindful, the anger is past. But then your mindfulness is weak, anger comes again. So you're actually going in and out, and you feel that you are still in the present moment. If you are deep in meditation, the question is when you want to ask me a question and you feel scared, feel excited, how to overcome that? Is it? It's something very natural because you are producing neuropeptides at that time. Any negative thoughts that make you feel uncomfortable means that these things are already being produced in your body. So the best way to deal with these things is to keep on watching them. Watch your thoughts and not identify with them. It's because you identify with your thoughts. Maybe unconsciously or subconsciously you may think, oh, what will people think of me? Am I going to get it right? What if I ask the question wrongly? Then I'll be shy. All these things are actually going in your mind very quickly, which is very subtle. So you must try to develop constant mindfulness of mental activities. If you're trying to watch the mind all the time, you'll realize that there's a lot of useless chatter going on in your mind. It's just like you're walking along the road and then you see somebody and then you start to comment on it. You see something on the wall and then you start to think about it. There's nothing beneficial about these thoughts. They just come, right? But although they are useless thoughts, they can still be very useful. Because if you make use of these thoughts and look at them as just phenomena that do not belong to you, and watch how these thoughts arise due to what causes and conditions, then you develop the perception of non-self, anattanupassana. So make use of all these thoughts, because these thoughts will keep on coming. They are always there. And so every time try to be aware of the thoughts and then bring your attention back to the five senses. Remember, earlier I said that the five senses take only present objects. But the mind can take past, present, future, and time-freed objects, concepts, imaginations, proliferations, fabrications. Just like when you're sleeping at night, all the five senses are shut down. But yet, in your dream, you can fly, you can dance, you can eat, you can quarrel, you can fight, you can kill, you can do everything in your dream. And who is doing that? It's your mind. Well, all your five senses are all asleep already. It's the mind that is doing all these things. So, I like to tell people, actually it's a very, very simple technique to overcome depression, to overcome insomnia. Why can't people sleep? Why are people depressed? Why are they worried? It's because the mind keeps on thinking and they have no control over the mind. A very simple technique is just to relax and change the object of your mind. Instead of thinking of those thoughts that make you depressed or make you worried, come back to the present moment, to the five senses. Be aware of your body sensations, sounds, lights. Even if your eyes are closed, you can still be aware of light in front of your eyelids. You can move your attention around. Or if you are someone who has been practicing some sort of concentration meditation, tranquility meditation, you could just focus your attention back on the breath or the rising and falling. Whatever you are doing, when you're walking to the toilet, be aware of your movements, the aircon touching your skin, your clothes touching your skin, the movements of your legs, your intention to open the door. Whatever it is, come back to the moment and you won't think of those thoughts that are troubling you. One of the worst things that can happen if you can't sleep at night is worrying that you cannot sleep. Cannot, 2 o'clock already, still cannot sleep. Tomorrow got to get up, mati lo. 2:30 already, cannot sleep. And then the more you think of that, the more agitated you become, and the more sleepless you become. So when that happens, be relaxed, forget about that, and just be aware of touch points in your body. Your head touching the pillow, your shoulders touching your bed. Slowly move down the body, slowly. And then, because your mind is actually very tired, your body is also tired. It's just that you're so obsessed with your thoughts that you cannot stop your mind from thinking. But if you're able to change the object of your thoughts to just watching body sensations, it's a very boring thing. You'll fall asleep in no time. Okay. Why is it that the mind keeps proliferating in its thoughts? That's because it's the nature of the mind. Because the causes and conditions are there. Because we have not eradicated delusion. We are living in a constant state of delusion all the time. And it's only rare moments that we remember. And that's where Satipatthana comes in. You remember that the thoughts are not you. And then only you come back to the body. So I always like to encourage people, don't think that meditation is just going to a 10-day retreat or 2 months retreat. These may be like charging your handphone battery. But after you charge your battery, you must put in the handphone and use it, right? After you charge your battery, you put it in a cupboard. What's the point? So these are charging your spiritual battery. But once you come out of the retreat, you must continue the practice by watching your mind all the time. The first verse in the Dhammapada says that the mind is the forerunner of all things. It is the leader. If you can catch the mind, you don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about the body, what you see, smell, taste, whatever. All will be taken care of if you can watch the mind. So make it a point to watch your mind all the time. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are. I wrote one little booklet called Wherever You Are, Whatever You Are Doing, Whenever You Remember, Be Present. I gave this talk, but a variation of this talk last night in USM Kota Baru. After the talk ended and we were coming back home, our 8th precept holder here, Siva, asked me, he said, hey, you ask us to be in the present moment all the time. That means I cannot think, I cannot plan for the future. Keep on watching the mind, keep on watching the body, cannot do anything. Right? That's a good point. Actually, we can plan for the future, but be aware that thoughts of planning for the future are occurring. You can plan for the future, but what I'm talking about is all these useless chatter that are going on in your mind can be grist for the mill. It can be manure for your tree of wisdom to grow. You make use of all these useless chatter which are there all the time to watch them as not self. They are not you. Don't identify with them. Don't get upset because you see a pretty girl and lust arises in you. Because it's the nature of the thought, because defilements have not yet been eradicated through wisdom. Don't be upset because you are jealous, because you are conceited. This is a nature. If you look at them for what they are and understand how they arise, that is Dhammanupassana. Understanding the causes and conditions when you see things. That's why in Dhammanupassana it says, you know the 6 sense bases, the internal and external sense bases. You understand on account of the internal sense base and external sense